Hello there guys, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another review. And guys, Ron, Betty and Brandon are a Bermuda Triangle of idiocy. Bear with me whilst I break it down. So this week, as you know, Brandon and Julia had a chat and Brandon agreed to move out of the farm with Julia because it was all becoming too much for her. But Brandon once again proved that he's a massive, life-sized flip-flop. So before we begin, as usual, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also smash the like button if you enjoy what you hear. But I'd just like to say a massive thank you to everybody that's joined recently. I've had loads of new subscribers, so thank you so much for the love. And I really hope you continue to enjoy the content. And so without further ado, I give you Brandon and Julia. So as we know, Julia doesn't like working on the farm, and last week she decided to speak to her dad about it. And she decides to FaceTime him. She explains she thought it would be more Pretty Woman, but instead it's Groundhog Day. And she explained to her dad that she's dirty all the time and she smells, and that she has to work every day. And her dad, Eagle, didn't seem too pleased, to say the very least. And when Julia told him that she'd been working like a pig, Eagle lets her know that when he got married, he moved on day one. Because he knew very well they needed their own space. And as she finished off the call, her dad said, "You're so far away, I wish I could help more. Eagle, I think you'll find that threats are universal. Threats know no boundaries, nor territories, nor countries. And I think with somebody such as Brandon, they'll be very, very effective. Brandon, beware, you'll be in a KGB shallow grave before you know it." So next time we see Julia, her dad's words still ringing in her ears, she decides to call Brandon from her storeroom. And Julia lets production know that she's not allowed in the kitchen, and she has to sneak all the time to Brandon's room in the middle of the night, and she said, "We just need to move." And she lays on her bed and calls Brandon, and guys, she lets fly with a verbal volley. She said, "I don't want to live here, I don't want to take care of the animals, I'm sick of it." And Brandon said, "Julia, calm down. Julia, what's making you so upset?" "Brandon, she's already told you. She doesn't like the fact that she has to work on the farm all day long. She doesn't like the fact that you never get to see each other. She doesn't like the fact you're not allowed to sleep in the same room. She doesn't like the fact you're under your mother's, Betty's, thumb." And she said, "Brandon, I just want to leave. I hate it here." And Brandon said, "Well, let's talk later." "No, the time is done. There's no more excuses." And this makes me laugh actually, because the moment they moved in, Brandon was always saying, "Give it a week, give it a little while, let's see how it goes." She's given it some time, it's no better. If anything, it's worse. The full horror of Betty hadn't been unravelled until now. She gets worse daily. But then Brandon comes with something that, to start off with, I was quite surprised at, but then I thought, actually, it fits, it does make sense. He said, "Julia, where have you developed this phobia of animals?" "What? Phobia of animals?" "If she had a phobia of animals, Brandon, she wouldn't be with you, you sneaky little rat. She doesn't have a phobia, she just doesn't want to work for free. Betty calls these little tasks chores. They're not chores, it's a full-time job. She's in employment, unpaid employment. Make of that what you will. And how could she be scared of the animals? You keep them in freaking cages." And guys, this absolutely got my goat, because you can tell that Brandon is trying to gaslight her. She's not stupid. Brandon, she's more intelligent than you are. But Julia was so angry, I think she didn't even pick up on this, and she just said, "Brandon, I want to leave now, or I'm going Russia. I won't wait." And again he said, "But what's wrong of taking care of a few cute little animals?" And Brandon knows the full litany of all the problems that there are. And so for him to say, "It's just the animals," and Julia, don't take it out on the animals, they're the innocents. And guys, I don't know why I'm surprised at his gaslighting and trying to minimise Julia's very real problems and very real angst to not wanting to take care of cute animals, because in that way he can paint Julia as highly unreasonable and what his parents are asking her to do as okay and understandable. And I think Julia's starting to click, and she said, "If you don't love me, I don't want to love you." And so it's unsurprising that Brandon's doing something like gaslighting, because he's learned this from Betty. This is just the kind of crap she would come out with. Not bothering to look at the whole situation and just seeing it from your own point of view to manipulate and get what you want. And also, as we've seen thus far, Brandon is playing both sides. When he speaks to Julia, he insinuates, "Yeah, well, I'll speak to my mum and I don't know if she will give us what we want." But this is the first time that he's insinuated that he's maybe not on Julia's side. She's in real trouble as far as I'm concerned. And another thing which doesn't really sit well to me is the fact that he continually blames things on Julia to his parents. So for instance, the wedding date, he said, if that's the date Julia wants, then that's the date I want. And we all lauded him at the time and said, yeah, great, good on you, Brandon, you've stood up for her. But he kind of didn't, if you really think about it, because at exactly the same time, he insinuated, yeah, it's her date, it's what she wants. And it really did put the blame on her. And also when he gave Julia love bites, and he knew that Betty would clock this and comment on it at some point. He knew what was going to happen. Betty would focus all her ire on Julia. Oh my God, your neck, what have you done? It's your son, your spawn that did that, Betty. So why are you sitting, talking to Julia and focusing on Julia? I know at one point Ron said, you gotta grow up to Brandon. But the overwhelming majority of the focus was on Julia. And there are many other instances, but also a couple of weeks ago when they were talking out on the veranda about Brandon making Julia tea in the morning. He said, well, I do want to come out and help with the animals. But then Julia says, no, don't leave me. And again, he blamed everything on Julia. He's well and truly painted Julia as the bad guy to Betty and Ron. And he continually makes no decision on things. Oh, we'll move, but there's no dates. I'll talk to them about doing this. Nothing happens. I'll talk about that. Again, nothing happens. And guys, we all know that making no decision is of course a decision. You're choosing to stick with the status quo and to keep things at the moment how they actually are. Julia, you need to watch this one. Brandon's so busy puking out promises, he can't possibly keep all of them. And they continue the conversation when Brandon gets home from work that evening. And Julia sits him down and she says, I'm alone, you don't stay with me, I hate it here, this place is really uncomfortable, and whenever I discuss problems with you, you never, ever fix them. And Brandon says yet again, this is just temporary. It's not as hard as you're making it out to be, Julia. And guys, it was unbelievable because Julia had to actually sit down and say, Brandon, I have a new family, I have no friends here, I have a new language, and I have a new job, I have a complete new life. Everything is very, very different for me. And Brandon's only thinking about literally her feeding these animals or her doing work on the farm. He's not thinking about absolutely everything and the fact that her whole life was turned upside down. And Julia told production, I adapt very quickly, but I'm not adapting very quickly to this situation. And I'm not at all surprised. I don't think a lot of people would, because you've taken a city girl from Russia and put her in rural America with people who, quite frankly, couldn't care how she feels. Not an easy move to make. And Julia said, I gave you my life. You didn't give me your life. But she reaffirmed, I will leave and I will go back to Russia if we don't move out. And Brandon has agreed now to move out. And yet again, he's making promises that I think he has no intention of keeping. Why bother? So the next time we see Brandon, he's off to meet his parents at a restaurant. And his parents are already sitting down and they've ordered. And Brandon comes in and sits down. And he tells them Julia wants to leave the farm. But before he could say anything else, Betty said, wait, why, what? Oh my God, no, why, no? And I've got to hand it to her, Betty's very, very good. And that to me was case in point of the level of Betty's manipulation. She didn't want him to have a free-flowing conversation and say, Julia wants to leave for all of these different reasons. She wanted to say, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm looking now, really upset. No, why? And she knows that by doing that, he's going to keep it short and sweet as to why she wants to leave. By doing that, he'll fear upsetting her too much if he lists off every single reason. She doesn't like the animals, so we're going to go and find our own apartment. Brandon, it's nothing to do with just the animals. It's you, Betty. It's your controlling ways and the fact that they can't sleep together. It's the fact that she never sees Brandon and she has to work for free. And she's told by people like Aspen, you're late, you cannot be late for a favour. She's being told you don't do enough work and you don't do it in the way that we would like and at a time that we would like. They're all of the reasons. There are many, many reasons. And she doesn't like being chastised for having love bites or for going into the hot tub with Brandon. She doesn't like being treated like a child. Basically, they're both pushing 30 and they're being treated as if they're 13. And then Ron pipes up. Really? And do you think you can afford an apartment right now, Brandon? And Brandon actually says yes. And I low-key think that Brandon's looked at my figures from last week. But Brandon said, yeah, it's going to be difficult, but we can do it. And then Betty chimed in, but if you want to have a nice wedding and you want to be able to buy somewhere, not just rent, it's better for you to stay where you are. And Ron reinforced this way by saying, Don't make a stupid decision. Do things the right way, not the wrong way. What's the right way, Ron? Your way. Is that the right way? And Brandon said if I don't move, she's going to go back to Russia. And Betty said, is it just the animals? And then he thought about it for a bit and he said, well, it's the animals, but it's also, she says that you've got a hold over me and she doesn't like it. And then Betty did a cry of the tearless variety. And she said, but we want to pass on the farm from generation to generation. We wanted your kids to take this farm over. We wanted to gain a daughter, not lose a son. So really, Betty, if Brandon moves out, you're losing him. He'll probably only move a couple of metres down the bloody road. And Ron's still chuntering on. And he said, tell Julia that you can't afford it. Tell her now. Tell her you're the man. Let her know. And he's pointing a septuagenarian finger in Brandon's face. And Betty pretends to wipe her tears away. And she says, I can't believe that she's making you choose between us and her. And again, Brandon fails to stick up for Julia and say, she isn't making us choose. She just wants us to live alone. We are nearly 30. And Betty says, is there anything that we can do to make you stay on the farm? Oh, Betty, Betty, Betty. Of course there is. And Brandon says, well, perhaps if we were allowed to sleep in the same room, I might be able to sort something out. And Ron jumps in. No, I am not going to give in. No, I won't. No, absolutely not. No, if that's what you want, then you need to find your own place. No. But the whole time he's screeching no, Betty looks like she's about to fold. And she said, well, if that's a compromise that I have to make then, just to get you guys to stay, then I'm prepared to make it. What? Guys, let's unpack this for a moment, and I'm feeling more than just a little bit cock-a-hoop. Remember when I said to you guys about 3 or 4 episodes ago that Ron was under Betty's thumb, that Betty ruled the roost, and that Betty made all the decisions? And lots of you guys in comments said, no, Ebird, you're wrong. Ron's just as vocal as Betty, and it's as much Ron as Betty. No, it isn't. I find not. And it was all in that statement. Ron's very against it, and Ron said absolutely no. And Betty wasn't even really looking at him or paying attention to this cacophony of sound which was coming from her left. She sat and pondered about it for a moment and then said, if that's a compromise that I have to make, there was no we in this. That's interesting. There's no I in team, but I suppose there is a me. And so that's the clearest indication to me that Betty is making the decisions. And Brandon wasn't even looking at his dad either. And Brandon said, well, yeah, I think that will do it. And Ron's still apoplectic with rage. And he said, no, it's a bargaining chip. No. And Betty said, well, if it keeps them on the farm, I am prepared to do it. And so the $1 million question with this family is, why is Brandon so weak? And here we have it. Brandon's been completely dominated by Betty, but also so has Ron. She doesn't necessarily dominate him as much as manipulate/dominate him. So what she can't get by crying, she gets by gaslighting. What she can't achieve by gaslighting, she achieves by craftily re-editing the truth. And what she can't gain by craftily re-editing the truth, she gains by just throwing away her so-called virtues. It was allegedly a really big deal to both Betty and Ron previously that these guys couldn't share the same room, and we find as soon as they think their labour's going to be withdrawn, suddenly it's okay, it's now acceptable. I think absolutely everything will be okay with Betty, just as long as the farm work is done and the chickens are fed for free. One day there'll be a time at the end of the world as we know it, and there will be a voice, an irritating voice. Betty's voice no less, and that voice will be asking, have you fed the animals? Very interesting. I think it was just another way of maintaining control over Brandon. So Brandon, having got what he came for, leaves, and Ron is still seething. And then the final time we see these guys, Brandon takes Julia to a snooker hall, and she seems really happy to be out, and she said, there's people, I love it here. And Brandon lets her know, I said I was going to try and do something and that I'd agreed that we were moving out. Well, moving out would be quite difficult financially, and it would be better for both of us if I could stay at the house for a little while longer. And so what I've organised with my parents is that you're allowed to sleep in the same room as me. And Julia said, no, I don't believe it. And as well she might not, because she's thinking to herself, this was such a deal breaker and such a big deal. And we've asked and begged for this and we haven't been allowed. And now suddenly we're allowed. And Brandon said, yeah. And she said, well, was anything else said? And he said, well, no, not really. I mean, I did mention that you thought she had too much control over me. And Julia begins, and rightfully, to start to worry because she realises now that Betty's not going to like her and Betty's going to go on some sort of campaign to get rid of Julia and to get in between this couple. And they go back to the house and they both start giggling and go straight into Brandon's room to sleep there for the night. And that's where we leave this couple for this week. So there's 3 points that I want to make. The first point is Brandon has learned skills from Betty. His gaslighting came almost from Betty's evil handbook. And then also, he's playing off both sides against each other. And whilst many people, and I've seen many people commenting about this week and saying he's going to come unstuck because he's saying one thing to Julia and another thing to the parents. No, he isn't, because he knows several things. One, Julia's level of English is not so great. He wouldn't be able to wiggle out of any little lie that he told. And also there's something about Julia in that when she gets mad and she's got something that she's focusing on, like, I want to leave, she doesn't really listen to the whole conversation. And so she managed to completely miss the fact that Brandon was saying, what's wrong? Why don't you like little animals? Why have you got a phobia against animals? She managed to miss all of that because she was so angry and so focused on saying, I want to move out, otherwise I'm going home. And so he doesn't properly get picked on all of the crap that he does, although she has picked him up on a couple of times on sort of blaming things on her. But then also, when he's blaming everything on Julia to Betty, that Julia wants to leave and she's not happy, a couple of times now, we've heard Brandon say, it's not my dream is Julia. And I want to see what's out there in the world that's going to be my dream. So the farm is not his dream, but he never really puts that forward to his parents. Also, he let production know of all the many hours that he does on the farm and how many hours he works. That wasn't done by mistake. That was done to kind of point out, I do all of this and I've been doing all of this for a long time. And it kind of is giving him a reason why he wants to stop and to start something new. And then he also manages to play both sides because he knows very well that Betty has an inability to listen properly and to understand. So when he tells Betty she's got a phobia against the little animals, Betty just accepts that. He knows that that won't be subject to any real level of scrutiny. And then again, when he was in the restaurant with his parents, and Betty was fake crying and saying, I want this farm to be passed on from generation to generation, Brandon said something along the lines of, that's a beautiful picture you paint, mother. So in other words, that's your little dream. It's nothing to do with me and it's not my dream. But he never actually will go out on a limb and say it. He wants to place all of the blame with Julia. And all Brandon's doing at the moment is just basically running away from his problems. He thinks that they'll never ever catch up with him, and who knows, he might be right. I suppose the only real issue with running away from your problems is if you ever think realistically these problems are going to catch up with you. If you don't think they ever are, then I guess you can keep running. But I feel so sorry for poor Julia. The whole family are gaslighting her, and she has no protection whatsoever. Even last week Ron said, we want Julia to love the farm. She has to have appreciation. If not, she's not the right girl for Brandon. What are you talking about? Why should she have appreciation? I'm sure she appreciates that you're allowing her to live with you, but calling someone unappreciative because they don't want to work for you for free is absolutely gaslighting. It's trying to make her think that you're completely ridiculous for having any of these feelings, and anybody else would be absolutely fine with it. And we all know that's not true. And in fact, you know, Brandon, that that's not true. So guys, let me know what you think. Do you think the whole family is gaslighting her? I certainly do. And so the other thing I wanted to discuss with you is, do we think that Betty is being nasty to Julia on purpose? Because Julia is not what Betty wanted at all. So remember when we first met this family, Betty actually told us that they signed Brandon up on a farmer's dating website. And that's because they wanted to make sure whoever he got with was happy to go and work on the farm. And so I low-key think Betty's just trying to do all she can to get rid of Julia. She wouldn't let them have the same room. She's forcing Julia to do tasks that she doesn't like. She's berating Julia at any point she can, and according to Julia, she won't allow her in the kitchen. If you wanted help with things, why not let Julia cook or clean or wash the pots? No, she only wants Julia to do this one task, and that's because I think she wants Julia to do what she knows Julia is least happy doing. And this week there was more fuel to this argument, and that's the fact that it was against all principles before for them to sleep in the same room, but now when it looks like Julia might be winning and managing to drag Brandon away from the family unit, she relents and says, okay, you can sleep in the same room. What changed? Absolutely nothing. But you know good and well, if she moves out with Brandon, he probably won't ever be back. So guys, what do you think to this theory? Do you think that she's doing all she can to ruin this relationship? I low-key think she is. She's just trying to make everything as difficult as possible, and she's also trying to make Julia feel as embarrassed as possible. The hot tub, how embarrassing. The love bites, again, really embarrassing. Why are you discussing that in front of Grandad? The condoms in the bedroom, you've already said don't sleep together, but then you've got a pot of condoms, again, super embarrassing. And also, I don't know many people that would have offered that bedroom that they've offered to Julia, knowing that she's a guest and that's her bedroom. It's got paint pots in, for God's sake. That room, as far as I'm concerned, is designed to make somebody leave. And not only did she do it, but she let the cameras in to see. Possibly Betty's got no shame, I don't know. But there aren't many women, I don't think, that would do that. So guys, let me know what you think down below. And then finally, what do you think between the dynamic between Betty and Ron? I think that Ron, for whatever reason, is under Betty's thumb. And just because Ron shouts and screams every so often at Brandon and acts as if he's domineering doesn't mean that he's ruling the roost, and I really don't think that he is. Betty completely ignored him and completely undermined his every shout this week at that restaurant. And Brandon wasn't surprised. No one batted an eyelid. Why? Because it happens all the time. So guys, let me know what you think in comments down below. As usual, I love to listen to your comments. I do read everything and I'll answer as many as I possibly can. So guys, please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel, and a massive thank you to everybody that's subscribed to me thus far, and I will see you very soon. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Ciao for now.